So let's move on to the recipe number 2. So our next one is, we have this Shiitake Endive Salad. So what I like to do, because I actually was used to eating a very high protein diet, as we now know, that's very unhealthy. However, I do have this kind of flavor that I like to do. So building on, I don't know if they've gone over this, but there's actually 5 flavors, basic flavors. Have you guys talked about this? Well, there could be, yeah. But we're talking about, the sweet, the sour, the salty, the bitter, and the one that's actually they're finding in science is umami. How many people have heard of umami here before? Okay, have you guys discussed it at all? Okay, so that's what you really want to bring up, that earthy kind of component, that kind of, so the foods that have natural glutamates like tomatoes have umami. There's other compounds in, well, we had shiitake mushrooms, we ran out of them, so we're using portobellos right here. That has some umami. The liquid brags, the fermented kind of like soy will have that kind of umami flavor. So it gives it that earthiness, that richness that I sometimes really just love to have in the dishes. So what we're going to do here is going to take some tart cherry juice and put that in here. So this adds a little more acidity. I generally, personally, don't get, when I'm doing savory dishes, don't get too sweet on it. For me, that's just a personal preference. I know some people love to go sweet. I kind of like to back off. I like to have a lot more sour to counterbalance the sweet. So it's that idea of balancing the different flavors that you have. So I put that in there, and then we put the liquid Bragg's aminos in there as well. And then we have our ginger. All right, and then we're going to put this cover here, just making sure this stuff here was... Okay, that's the balsamic glaze. Thank you. See, Linda? Wonderful. Anyway, so we're going to put this on, and we're going to jack this heat up again. Put it on maybe like a medium flame. Basically what we're doing here, we're just infusing the liquid aminos, the tart cherry juice, and the ginger, making kind of an infusion so that the ginger has time to kind of develop the flavors here. After we've done that, what we're going to do is then add in back the tomatoes and the shiitake mushrooms, quote unquote, on that one. So basically, in that sense, I'm going to expedite this again. So you would do this for 5 minutes. That would help to kind of get this going. And then what you want to do is then add your mushrooms, then add in your tomatoes. Again, mushrooms being a very, very powerful, healthy group that we're dealing with here, it's a whole new class. We have plants, we have animals, and we have fungi. It's another kingdom that we have in our system, and it has very unique compounds, especially for our immune system. If you read Dr. Fuhrman's super immunity book, he will definitely go into all the different benefits of mushrooms, and also very helpful in women because, again, it helps balance the estrogen system with something what's called the anti-aromatase. So these are very, very beneficial. I'll tell you, after reading that book, I started really, I still even eating like pretty healthy and everything. I was still getting like 2 colds a year. This year, I made an effort to eat mushrooms 5 to 6 times each week. I didn't get anything. I was completely healthy. I had sick patients left and right. So I think there's something to this, to this science here. You know, Joe? Okay. So as we're cooking that, and then what you're basically doing here is I would probably jack this up a little bit because I want, like, as you can see right now, it has a lot of fluid in here. It's doing this angle here. I don't know if we can get that up on there. But you can see there's a pretty decent amount of fluid in this one. So what we want to do is let that kind of, we want it to evaporate and then concentrate. So again, fluid management, when you put it on, when you take it off, looking at how things are being cooked, that's probably one of the skills that really will come in handy that you can learn from time. And then hopefully, and that's why when you're being present, and you're watching it, then you won't be doing like other things like talking on the phone and then wondering why your food didn't come out the way it was supposed to when you're kind of multitasking. Enjoy this process. Allow yourself to enjoy it. Smell it. While you're working through it, you know, I'm not going to do it here, but I'm tasting things. I'm smelling things. I'm listening to music. I'm doing all these kind of things. It's just a wonderful experience. And then my wife comes in, and then we just share this wonderful meal together. And not only that, not only tastes good, but then we feel good afterward. An hour afterwards, we're not like, like you would do with most of your meals that we would eat. We actually like, all right, what do we want to do now? Because when you're in higher energy states, you're going to have better interactions. When you're low and you're feeling irritable and the toxins and and if you don't eat every 3 hours, you're feeling headaches and all this other stuff, how good are your relationships going to be? It's going to be really tough. And instead of trying to will yourself every day to feel better, wouldn't it be nice when actually you woke up one day and you actually felt better and you didn't have to force yourself to kind of push yourself through the day? The actual day pulls you. And that's where you can get to. So we're getting this to evaporate, concentrate. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to add some of these shallots because generally I chop them up and you can taste, as you're doing it, you're tasting it and figuring out, all right, actually this one's not quite, doesn't have as much bite, so I don't need to cook it as much. I can actually put it a little bit later. So we're dealing with plants. They change with the season, and you have to taste these things, smell these things, and you get to know it more intimately. And you'll be able to, when you go to the supermarket, to pick things that are better. You'll know because you're using your 5 senses. And I mean, how many people here, when they go grocery shopping, smell what they're picking? Great, awesome. Because that makes a huge difference, actually. You become more sensitive to it. You can pick up slight levels of fermentation after a while that you would never have been able to do before. You'd be like, nope, that's fine. I'll go on to the next thing. And you wind up buying better foods. And if you have better ingredients, you'll have better dishes. All right, let's try to lower this sucker. All right. You're like my father, those corny jokes, I'll tell you. I mean that in the most loving way, by the way. I see you as a father figure, as a beautiful man. So as this is evaporating, concentrating, we're going to accelerate this a little bit here. But what we're going to do is probably start to lower the heat as when it gets to about the level that you want. Then what I love to do is I add a little bit of cashew. I take cashews and I grind them in a food grinder. Your coffee grinder is like one of your best friends. I love, you have one, we're not drinking coffee, most of us anymore, I think. But anyway, you can use it for so many other things. So putting nuts in there, making a little powder, it becomes a thickening agent. Another idea, take some dried mushrooms, put it in the grinder, make a little powder. I make a shiitake powder. All right, when you get the liquid, I add it in there, and now you got a nice, beautiful thickening agent for your thing. So you can add all kinds of things and pulverize them into powders. They become thickening agents. So we're looking here is we want a consistency that's kind of pasty. I'm not sure I'm going to accomplish that out here, but we'll make our best move. Okay. Yeah, this will need to cook a little bit further before I plate this. All right. Because it's going to need to kind of concentrate a little bit more here. So we're doing okay with time. So in general, I'm not sure this is going to totally work out with this stove. It's a little tricky here, but so it's very complicated. So you have to have some really like high level knife skills when you cut an endive. You got to come down and you got to cut it like that. So hopefully you can learn that over time, but it's such a cool thing. It's such a cool plant. These are like little chips, and they're nice and crispy. They have a little bit, I think, Martin has really brought out like the idea of how wonderful bitter is. Mostly the American palate is so afraid of bitter because they're constantly numbing it with salt and sugar, so that it becomes so super sensitized to the bitter. That's what happens there. And so it takes them time to get used to that. Okay, let's lower that. And so like anything bitter, like they'll run. But as you start to eat these wonderful foods, we start to appreciate bitter. Bitter usually indicates some really powerful chemicals, really healthy chemicals are present in the food. So I just kind of peel the leaves. I go across here. I'm hoping that this will evaporate and concentrate. We want to get to basically a consistent little paste so it wouldn't drizzle all out of here. I think it's going to in this case, but in general, when you're at home and you're not in front of a crowd and using a little small burner, I think you'll be able to do this in a better way than what I'm doing right now. So I'm doing So anyway, we'll just do that, and then I'll cut this one out so we have to keep the leaves at a bigger size. And then what you do is, you know what you do with this kind of stuff? You eat. You eat while you're doing it. You fill up with these really high nutrient foods, and then by the time you're eating, you're not even gonna be that hungry. I love doing that. I love going home. I'll take like baby bok choy is one of my favorite things to do. And you take that and you get it like a low, like a hummus that doesn't have that much oil in it. And I just start dipping that, and I'm putting on music, and I'm cooking, and I'm eating that while I'm doing that. And I'm filling up on these really, high nutrient density foods before I'm even going into the other foods. And then I used to be 267 pounds, by the way. I'm now 195, just to let you know. Thank you. I used to eat a cheeseburger every day from age 17 to 19, and ice cream at night. We don't judge here. Come on. Yeah, I had a 42-inch waist. Yep, when I was 22. I'm 6'4". I had a 42-inch waist, 267. I'm now 195. And I can tell you the difference is amazing. Like just getting out of the bed on your knees, on your back. I mean, it's like, it feels like gravity is less strong than it once was when I was younger. So I was really hoping this would come together, but it's not really going to come together. But anyway, so at this point, you can add your shallots. Mixing that in there. And again, I would lower the heat at that point. I would turn it off and just let the residual heat kind of cook it, and so that you're not going to destroy a lot of those beautiful compounds that are present in the onion family. Again, if you want some of the muted flavor, you can divide it up, put some in the beginning, and then put some at the end. You can layer your meal.
Does this freeze?
Does this freeze? I have no idea. I created this about 3 weeks ago. And I just had fun with it, and then it came out, and my wife said, this is pretty good. So I was like, all right, I've submitted it. So again, so it's not going to be as great. It's going to, all right, this is going to look kind of funny, but anyway. So you basically fill up the leaves. This is a little, like I said, this is a little looser than I would normally have it, but we'll do our best to make it look presentable. I used to watch Emeril Lagasse a lot. He was like, even though his foods weren't like the best, but he taught you how to love food, and that's what I learned. And I think that was one of the more important lessons there. And even when you watch these brilliant chefs who are not cooking Nutritarian, once you start to learn the principles, you can just convert the things right over to the things, if they're using cream, you might use an avocado, or you might use some sort of nut butter. You can easily substitute and learn from these masters and actually have some fun with it. All right, so I'm making a little bit of a mess here, but that's okay. All right, and then what I like to do is I love using texture. Texture I think is very important. Texture is a part of flavor. Taste, we went over the 5 tastes, but actually texture actually goes into making the flavor, which is actually a more generalized concept, and texture is so important. So I love, right here I had a beautiful Linda here had roasted some seeds here, just lightly toasting them to kind of bring out, as Chef Martin had said, as we roast things, we intensify their flavor. So we're adding some sunflower seeds, so high in vitamin E, helpful for the brain here. We're just going to sprinkle them around, pass it around the plate here. And, just get wild with it. Just throw some, some pumpkin seeds here, high in zinc, also helpful for depression and anxiety, help with mood, helps with immune function, helps with sexual function. A lot of good stuff there. And what you're doing is you want to make it almost like it's a celebration on a plate. And then at the end here, one of my favorite things is balsamic reduction. And you guys you have done that probably, you've discussed it. One of them has a beautiful, you basically take some balsamic vinegar, you put it, I like to put it in a large flat pan because actually it has a broader surface area so that it will evaporate and concentrate really quickly on you, so you don't have to take all day. Make sure you aerate your area, because if you have people with sensitive smells, you may want to make sure they leave the home first, because it's concentrating vinegar, so that vinegar smell is going to permeate. But you evaporate, you concentrate, it becomes a little bit sweeter. It loses a little bit of that kind of intense kind of sourness. This is a little looser than I would normally have it. I'd like to get it to like a syrupy. what you can do is when you're doing it and it's cooking, what you do is, one of the tricks you can do is at the end is you take a wooden spoon and you dip it. You want to know whether it's at the right consistency. You dip the spoon in, and then you would just run your finger across it. Be careful, obviously you don't want to burn your finger, but just run your finger across it really quickly. And if it doesn't run down, it's around the right consistency at that point. So it's a little trick that you can kind of do. And then remember, as things cool, they will get thicker. So at that point, sometimes people will overdo it, and then it gets to this really thick, tight thing, which you can just correct with a little bit of water. You can pop it in the microwave and then smother it up again. So, and then you just drizzle it around here, and you just make it. What I love, what's great with balsamic reductions? I mean, one of the classics is on strawberry. Strawberry is just wonderful on balsamic reduction. There are many flavors, because it can cross both, because it's becoming sweeter now, so you can put it on fruits. You can put it on all kinds of things, and it looks fancy, and it sounds cool. Yeah, I made a balsamic reduction and endive thing, and kind of cool. So anyway, there's your Shiitake Endive Salad. Thank you so much.